Hello and welcome to a quick overview of project management in a box. Now, in this manual, you will get the following resources. Please bear with me because there's quite a lot to go through. As you will see, you will certainly get value for money. Okay, let us start with the project structure. Now, first of all, we'll start with actually what the definition of a project is. Now, this is going back to basics, and it's very much about lockstep. And so that people can be very clear about exactly what each stage of the project management cycle we're going to be covering in this manual. So we start with the definition of a project, and we talk about the project life cycle. This is a quick overview for people who are very visual. And then that's followed up exactly for each of those stages, for instance, feasibility stage down to underneath, exactly to break that up into exactly what you should be thinking about at the feasibility stage. For instance, what are the alternatives to running a project? What's the business case? What's the need and match between the business need and the project? What's the rationale? The project brief overview, including deliverables, timescales, budget and quality measures, and we have a copy of that in this manual. And affordability, the value for money, cost effectiveness, return on investment. So we go through those kind of examples to look at each stage of the project planning cycle. Then we look at the life cycle in practice: define, plan, implement, and complete. So again, define the overview, the aims, the objectives, assumptions, risks, success criteria, break this all down into what that would look like if you were looking at it visually. Then we look at the feasibility. We mentioned feasibility there, so we go further and we put together the overview document, and it's covered these elements about, where's the financing coming from, who's in charge, why are you doing this, what you're aiming to achieve, all those questions you need to be asking yourself before you go through with that. So here we've actually documented a project overview summary. In here, in this document, we've also included the definition of objectives and outcomes, because people do not understand what the difference between an outcome and an output is, for example. So there's very clear sort of giving some examples there about what an outcome measurement might look like. We then move on to project management and governance, and it's very important to be very clear at the top of the tree where the responsibility and the accountability is to the funding sponsor. When I say funding, it doesn't have to be external. If you're actually getting some kind of financial sort of sponsorship from this, then it could be in your own organization. You may be doing this for free. So your sponsor might not be financial. Your sponsor might be somebody who's giving you the support and responsibility to do this, somebody you're going to be accountable to. So there's an example here of how that governance structure might look in terms of where the lead organization or the lead department, who else is going to be involved at that level, how they fit into a steering group, for example. The steering group actually isn't the decision maker, it's the governance committee and then the organization and the sponsor itself. So it goes up. The responsibility of the manager, there's somebody usually above the project manager, it could be the CEO, there may be a reference group and that feeds in, and the project team. So there's a very clear governance and management structure which must be adhered to. And then you've got the operations, the governance structure. So we break that down further and do that sort of a little bit of a mapping and planning. So we give you the examples there of what you should be thinking about. We also talk about, we mentioned a project steering group and a project reference group. So we've actually put example of terms of reference for each of those groups. So you can look at that and adapt it for your own purposes. An example of a project team organization chart. Again, it's very clear to be able to determine the levels of responsibility and accountability and who reports to who. We take that a little step further by actually thinking about everything that needs to be reported in the project, when, how, and by whom, and to whom. So they've got a very clear understanding of where everybody fits into the big picture. Then we look at the external communication. So who you're talking to externally, who the audience is, what's the message you want to get across, how are you going to deliver this, what kind of media, is it social media, is it website, is it press releases, etc. How frequently do you want to do this, and who's going to be responsible for doing this? So we've got a template covering that as well. Accountability, and yeah, we take that even further. Have you got your communication covered? So that's like a summary of all the templates that's just gone before. Then we look at the project startup and initiation. So what's in scope? This is more for the project manager. They've got a good sort of like an overview of what the project's about. So if you're moving from one manager to another, at least there is some kind of overview summary. Project development, I talk about this golden triangle. The golden triangle of project control, it has to run on budget, on time, and to specification. In other words, the quality of what you were wanting to do. The systems, the way you're doing it, the result, they all fit into that quality space. So again, an example of what that might look like. So you know you need to actually plan the right amount of time, make sure the budget is feasible, and that the quality is, what you want to deliver is going to be that what the customer is expecting. Planning the details, so going in there talking about how you actually start to break down the tasks of what you want to do to create a work breakdown structure. Here is an example of setting up a community garden, because this document is relating to, in the not-for-profit space, we have a sister program, sister document, which is for small businesses. Same criteria, except this is a different example in that particular publication. So again, we're looking here about setting up headings, and then under those headings, break them down into tasks. You think that looks professional and easy? Well, what we do then is we show you how to do that from scratch. And that includes using Post-it notes. And that's a great team effort. Even if you have got, whiz-bang computer programs, etc., and apps, sometimes it's easy to go back to basics, because it's not about the result, it's about getting there. It's about that interaction. It's about minds coming together and actually working out things that one person wouldn't think of, another person would, but it's building relationships at the same time. So this is a process which is very sort of very backward in terms of technology, very analog, but in fact it's not about the analog, it's about bonding. And everybody being on the same page. In the middle of all of this, there is actually a formula for the most optimum time, most likely completion time. Yes, there is a formula, and we show you that. We also show you how that when you're actually working out those steps, there's a little sort of like a little grid that you would actually, for each item on the work breakdown structure or on those Post-it notes, exactly what the task number is, how long it's likely to take, when it's going to start, when it's going to end, and who's going to be who's going to be responsible for that. So again, we've just gone into more sort of just showing you exactly how we work that out. Then we translate that to a project plan. Now, because we produce this in a Word format, means you can take the templates out and use them straight away. So this is just an example, and we've put in there, as you notice, we put project management in at the beginning, and we put evaluation and reporting in at the end. So whatever you put in between, it's always good to have those at the beginning and the end. So we put them in for you. There's also a critical path. In other words, what must happen prior before a task can be done, because if you don't do that task, you can't do the next task. So you create a critical path. And what sort of items can be done if, for instance, you've got a delay, what items can be brought forward because they're not part of that critical path, they're running independently. So again, it's an example of how you can use that. So here we have an example of critical path that I put together with the example that I've been using. Then we have a project resource plan, human resources, physical resources, any travel, any other items that you're going to need for each element of the project that you're actually going to do for each stage, so that you've got a good idea of exactly what's needed. and you can plan out. There's a budget template here, which has got most sort of criteria that you would be thinking about of who would be contributing, and also what the mainline expenditure items might be as well. And those figures should add up to equal to each other. And so that's just a summary of that. Then we're moving down to the project plan summary. So again, this is just going back on the recent chapter, just to make sure you've got everything in place. Then we move on to the risk plan, and I always recommend that you do the risk management plan alongside doing the project plan, doing all the Gantt chart, that chart that I just showed you, that table, because there's maybe mitigation factors on the risk plan that you can then build back into the project plan. So you've built mitigation into the plan because you thought about it. The project implementation, this is for the project manager who wants to monitor and measure, make sure everything is on time, on plan, on specification, on budget. So we've actually got some tables here, for instance, the quality measures checklist, that everything, the whole process, the success measures, critical path has been identified, testing, everything through to final report. Completed, procedures documented, post-implementation review completed, everything that you could think of, there is in this table. So that talks about the inputs become the processes, become the outputs, become the results. In the middle of all that, there's a feedback loop. Milestone report. So all the milestones that you would expect along the way, when they're scheduled to be, when they're actually happening, because that will impact the time frame. And then what you can do, then it may impact the budget as well, and on resources. So what changes you may need to make just to keep the time to schedule. Budget control, again, same thing, but for the finances. So what the variance is, what you need to do to change, etc., will be there. Project status, this is obviously if you're going to be working with your team or reporting to the next level up, then this is your project report, your achievements, the next step, the matters outstanding, other comments. Great reporting mechanism. And then you've got the delivery and closure. So you've got the elements of the delivery, of the closure. Delivery is ensuring business ready. This is about getting ready for the finalization, delivery of the results, ensure all product services meet the agreed criteria, implement into the business and service environment. So what you're going to need, a financial statement, the handover of outstanding issues and risks, team evaluation, celebration, the evaluation process, what did we do? How well did we do it? All those questions you need to be asking yourself. Examples there are of project management software, which may need, there's consistently new software being made available. So they're just examples, maybe a bit out of date now, but certainly gives you sort of food for thought. And finally, some information about myself. My name is Pat Gross, and yes, you're free to contact me anytime. Yes, I hope you enjoy your experience. Thank you.